And have a quiz here, where you were asked to sketch straight lines. Y equals 2x minus 4. And y equals 1/4 x plus 3. One way to sketch the lines, it's not a bad way to start, although we'll use other methods in this course. And let me get this screen to where I can see what I'm doing. Okay. Two ways to graph this one. We can make a table. Okay, and it's a straight line, no fractions, so it makes pretty good sense just to use x equals -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. We could use other numbers. But this will give us what would hopefully be a pretty good picture. And then we evaluate the function. If x is -2, we get -8. Okay. Just to make sure everybody doing this arithmetic, fill in the rest of the values here. Don't bother copying down anything else. Just write your y values, then you can fill in everything around it. What I'm saying is what I often see. People aren't doing the arithmetic. Okay. And this is probably because you're doing arithmetic by calculators. You need to do your arithmetic by hand unless the calculator is really required. If the numbers are big, then well, if they got lots of decimal places in them or other weirdness, you certainly have to use a calculator. But if you reach for a calculator here, you don't want to do that. Nobody reached for a calculator. So I'm not sure how you got the right answers on the homework, but clearly you did. People did quite well in the homework. Okay, so how do you get these numbers? Well, if x is -2, you put in x, you put in -2 for x. You get y equals -8. How did I get that? Y equals -2 times 2 plus 4. Okay, I replace x with 2. Actually, it's 2 times. Let me write that up correctly. Write it this way, it's 2 multiplied by -2 plus 4. Now, actually, when I wrote this down, I wrote it down wrong. Okay, so if you believe me, instead of doing the arithmetic, probably would have been better off to do the arithmetic. What do we get when we evaluate this? What should I put there instead of -8? Okay, I see evidence. People use a calculator. Like, you got to be able to, do this simple arithmetic. That equals 0. Okay. 2 times -2 is -4. We get 0. Okay. Get 0. And then y equals 2 times -1 plus 4. And I'm just going to go ahead and write them down. So it's going to do that. We have 2 times 0 plus 4. And then what do we have here and here? And what do you get when you do that arithmetic? Oh, God. I was really questioning myself and I wrote out -8 here originally. And somebody just pointed out that that's the original problem. It said 2x minus 4. Back the video up 10 seconds, you see that. Okay, but I wrote plus 4 here. And then I evaluated this because that's what I was looking at. And I got -8. Okay. But since I have 2x plus 4 here, we'll do 2x plus 4. And it could be that somebody had the arithmetic right from the beginning. But somebody clearly were somewhat lost on doing that arithmetic. At least compare that. Okay. Now my x values go from -2 to 2. So if you even scale, I'm going to put -2 here and 2 here. And I'm going to abuse the scale a little bit in the vertical direction. I'm going to put 8 up here because I don't have room to, in a scale of 2, 8 should be up about here. So I'm going to have different scales on my x and y axis, which can give you won't give you a distorted shape, but it can give you slopes that don't look right. In any case, here it is. Now, to get 1, I'm going to put a line halfway between 0 and 2. For what I think is halfway, it's a little hard to see on this board. I think after all I've done, I'm going to do this better. But then I'm going to divide the interval between 0 and 8 in half. I get 4. Divide that in half, I get 2. Here I get 6. And those are actually the numbers I need to do the graph. I'll put little marks there for 1, 3, 5, and 7 as well. Then I just plot my points. And if I have -2, x is -2, y is 0. So I'm going to put a point right here. If x is -1, y is 2. Well, okay. What I like to do, because I don't like to draw a bunch of grid lines. Another shortcoming of open math is they don't ask you to do a freehand graph. They already give you a grid. So you never have to think about what the grid is. And as a result, some of you didn't know how to start sketching a graph on paper. Okay, it's actually quite simple. Just do what I'm doing and you'll pick it up. I don't think you have any problem because I've had any problem with some of the other stuff. Okay, so to get the point for x equals -1, we know that y equals 2. Well, there's y equals 2. Also, y equals 2 everywhere on this line. The y coordinate of every point on this line is 2, so there's the y equals 2 line. The x equals -1 line is here. Every point on this line has x value, x coordinate, -1. So if I look at the intersection of these two lines, that's where y equals 2. Now, if you label these points, this point would be -1, comma, 2. And this point would be 0, -2, x coordinate, then 1 coordinate. Okay, now, when x is 0, y is 4. So what do we have? Well, x is 0 on the y-axis. So this is the y-axis. It's also the line x equals 0. That's very important. So make sure you make yourself a note of that. And then the line y equals 4. Well, we'll draw it in here, although we really don't need it. Everywhere in this line, y equals 4. At this point, of course, x equals 0 and y equals 4. This vertical line here is x equals 1. And for x equals 1, we need y equals 6. We draw the horizontal line with the y-axis at 6, and that's the line y equals 6. We put a point there. And then finally, we'll draw a line x equals 2, and our line y equals 8, and we get the point here. Now this point is 2, 8. This point was 1, 6. And this point is 0. Well, then we can draw a straight line through these points. So you need to be able to do that. Since that's so important, I'm going to ask you to do it for the second function, but let's make a table first. I don't know if we were recording or we weren't. Hit the button and nothing seems to happen. So again, summarizing, we evaluate the function. We also try to write the correct function, which I didn't. I would have also had the marks. We sketch an X and a Y axis. We label them X and Y. And then we take the point, negative, when X is -2, Y is 0. Well, Y is 0 on the X axis. I mean, this is where Y is 0, and it's 0 everywhere to the right and left. Every point on this line has a Y coordinate of 0. So we take the line Y equals 0 and the line X equals -2. Well, X equals -2 on this line. And where that meets the line where Y equals 0, we mark the point and label it 0, -2. Okay. Now, when X is -1, I'd like to draw the line X equals -1. Then I draw the line where Y equals 2. Horizontal line that goes through the Y axis at 2. And where those two lines intersect, I mark the point, that's the point -1, 2. The Y axis is the line X equals 0. So when X equals 0, we're on this line, but we're also on the line where Y equals 4. Well, Y equals 4 everywhere on the line through the Y coordinate 4 on the axis, and there's Y equals 4. X equals 1 everywhere on this vertical line through the point where X equals 1 on the axis. And Y equals 6 everywhere on this horizontal line. So I draw both those lines at the point of intersection and label the point 1, 6. It's 1, 6. Same for 2, 8. The line X equals 2, the line Y equals 8. If two lines intersect, that's the point 2, 8. I'm going to ask you to do that for the second function. I'm going to tell you what to use for the table. On your open math homework, they kind of did this for you. They told you what X values to use. Okay, that's okay for an introduction, but you're going to have to learn to figure out what X values you really want to use. So if you were to look at this and say, what X values would I use? I wouldn't use X equals 3. Because 3 times 1/4 is 3/4. That's a fraction. If you can avoid having to graph fractions and still get the picture of the graph, then you should. It just makes it simpler, especially if first we're being introduced to later, we can deal with fractions a little bit better. So I'm going to use multiples of 4. So instead of like -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, I'm going to use -8, -4, 0, 4, 8. The two smallest negative. The two smallest negative multiples of 4 and the two largest negative multiples of 4, as well as 0. So, do the arithmetic, tell me what you get here, right off to the side. This would be Y equals 1/4 times -8 plus 3 equals. And show me the steps. Show me what you think 1/4 times -8 is, and then what you think you get when you add that to 4. Hopefully you're right, and if not, we'll talk about it just a little bit. Okay, now people are having a lot of trouble on doing the arithmetic. So my first advice is go back and review the assignment I gave you, the fractions. Go back and do it again for practice. There were assignments at the beginning of the course, I believe, I'm going to repeat, make sure really assign those. But anyhow, let's look this up. Okay, you got. So, putting this out. Recommend you write everything as a fraction. And in this case, you don't find a common denominator, you're multiplying fractions. Which is the easy thing, multiplying and dividing fractions is easy, you don't have to find a common denominator. If you're adding or subtracting, then usually you're gonna have to find a common denominator. We're not doing that here because we're not adding and subtracting fractions. Also, we chose these numbers so that when we divide them by 4, they don't come out with fractions. Okay, well, okay, you do 1/4 times -8 over 1. 1 times -8 is -8, 4 times 1 is 4, and then you add 3. And now, all we have to do is divide 4 into 8, we get 2, but we are dividing a positive into a negative or negative by a positive. We're dividing unlike signs, and the rule been around for millions of years now is when you multiply unlike signs, you get a negative. You get -2 plus 3, and that comes out 1. So now we can put 1 for y in this table. I do the same thing for the other numbers. I'm not going to do them all, but I'll do 4. Now, you might immediately know that 1/4 of 4 is 3, because you divide 4 into 4 equal parts, each one is 1. You might just know that intuitively, or you might even see this divides into this. Well, okay, but I think you need practice doing fractions. So I'm going to recommend that you write it out. It takes a little longer, but it reinforces what you do. And I've got another question. It looks like I made another mistake. Let's see. Okay, let's be clear now. Somebody wanted me to do -4, because no, I'm doing 4. Okay. I think I kind of indicated that, but anyway, we're doing 4. I'm just doing a couple, so I just selected another one, not the next one. Okay. Let's just be clear. If x equals 4, then we get this. Okay, so that gives us 1 times 4 is 4, 4 times 1 is 4. We have 3, that's 1 plus 3, and that gives us 4. So there's 4. Now your other numbers are 0, constant. Other numbers are 2, 3, and 5. Okay. Now let's see if you can construct a graph using the same methods that I did here. See if you can use every type of detail that I use to construct the graph. Try to stop the recording. Okay. I think I did pretty well with the graph. Actually draw the graph. I think the equal statement. I'm going to put 2 here. And then here I'm going to put 4. Something that I go just a little further. Then 5. I'll go further to about 5. And we're going to need line numbers 1 through 5. So just go ahead and let's choose lines. And I'm gonna read that to you. There's one, and there's none of those. That's equal to one. Y axis left from y equals x equals 0. And the x-axis is y equals 0. So we're going to include that. And this is something you got to remember. Because we're going to use it when we do the intercepts. Okay. So now we've got a grid that gives us just the lines we need in order to graph our function. We don't have a lot of extra lines. We have just what we need. And then we sketch our points. Y equals. Sorry, X, oh. I use -2, -1, 1, and 2. And then 1. And attention wasn't thinking. Should be -8, -4, 4, 8. And now it's not on any scale by any means. But okay, so we need x equals -8. And all I saw was -2, which made me realize that I didn't careless, but be more careful than I. Okay, so -8 and -1 gives this. -4 and 2 there gives us this point. -3 and 0, -1, I'm sorry, -0 and 3, 4 and 4, 8 and 5. There's our right. Okay, do it more carefully than I did. Don't make that mistake. Now, in neither case is the scale of the graph of the y-axis the same as the scale of the x-axis. That's because most of the things, most of the functions that arise in the real world won't look right. If you use equal scales, they'll either be too steep, they'll be almost straight up and down, or they'll be almost flat. Okay, just because you get bigger numbers. Okay, you get really big slopes and so. Okay, really small slopes. So what you see in open math generally gives you equal scale, but that's not the way it is in the real world. Okay? You use the scale appropriate to your function, to the numbers that you have. Okay, well, we want to look a little more at this. There's another way to graph these, and apparently did that well too in open math. But can you find the intersection? Function. People have a little trouble with this. Open math showed you that to find the x-intercept, let's do the y-intercept. That's really easy. Y-intercept when x equals 0. What I saw in that video was a table that kind of looked like this. X equals 0, what's y? What x makes y equals 0. It's telling you the same thing. This is, you don't need this, but that's not a bad image, okay? Trying to find the 2 points. or one or the other of these is zero. The y-intercept occurs when x equals zero. Why is that? It's because the y-intercept is the coordinate of the point on the y-axis that the graph goes through. And the y-axis is the line where x equals zero. Matter of fact, we found the x-intercept right here. I'm sorry, the y-axis. We found the y-intercept here. We let x equal zero, y was 3. So right there's your y-intercept. Okay, so I can even kind of circle that. But see, you're not always going to get the y-intercept when you do a table. And you're not always going to do a table. In pre-calculus, we very seldom make a table. We learn the properties of functions and learn how to transform them and so forth. But we have to have a foundation of doing all this before that'll make any sense. Okay, so y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. Y equals 2x plus 4. I'll do this one. We found the y-intercept for this one. We also found the y-intercept here. It's going to be 4. Okay. X equals 0. Y is 2x plus 4 equals 2 times 0 plus 4, which equals 0 plus 4 equals 4. The y-intercept is 4. Graph point is 0, 4. That makes sense? The thing you have to know, and I pointed out when I was doing this, the fact that this is x equals 0 is important. The fact that this is y equals 0 is important, just for this reason. Okay. So anyhow, we get the graph point 0, 4, so we can come over here. And all we have to do is say, okay, this point here is 0, 4. I didn't even put a scale on this graph. We didn't start with a grid. We just drew a set of axes and said I want 4 to be about that on the y-axis. Put it up here if you want, put it down here if you want, put it wherever. It's going to give you a useful picture. Okay. Now, the x-intercept occurs y equals 4, y equals 0. Okay. Now, y equals 0, y equals 2x plus 4 becomes 0 equals 2x plus 4. Okay. So when you find the x-intercept, you're generally going to have to solve an equation. So can you solve that equation? 0 equals 2x plus 4. Show me the steps. Okay, now y'all remember how to solve an equation like this. And I did a good job. Might have seen one mistake, but I'm not sure. I think maybe everybody got it right. Okay, so if we subtract 4 from both sides, and 4 goes away here, then we get 2x on this side, and we get -4 on this side. I flip the sides, because we usually like to have our x on the left. So that 2x divided by 2 is -4 divided by 2. And 2x divided by 2 is x. So x is -2. The point is -2, 0. Well, if that's 4, I'm going to use equal scale, or less equal scales, and say that this is -2, 0. So there's both. I don't know why I showed that. I forgot through that point, but my line so we change direction. Maybe I was trying to avoid it through my line and stop. Okay, well, there it is. And then we can label this as graph y equals 2x plus 4. Well, that's actually, it's a lot of ways easier than making a table. You just have to plug in 0 for x and you get y. And then you have to let y equal 0 and you get an equation you can solve for x. That's all there is to it. Okay, makes sense? And then you put the 2 points in the graph. You don't have to scale the graph first. You can figure out what the 2 points are, so you got an idea how big to draw your graph and stuff. But then you just make a graph that makes sense to you. Okay. And at that point, you might want to use the graph or something. So that would be a good idea to go say, okay, well, here's 2, here's 3, here's 1, here's 1, and then you go 2 more. We get 4, if we go 2 more, we get 6. That's -4, -6. We go 2 on this side, 4, 6. Just make sure that all our 2's are the same size, which is really the case. What I've done, we put a -4 down here, same distance below the x-axis as our +4, mark that off. And mark as much the graph off as we want to. Okay. Now there's more we could do, and that's something I'd like to do. Oh, I'll restrain myself for today. Okay. Got this equation, we want to find the intercepts, similar to what we just did. Y-intercept when x equals 0. I just said, write this step out and begin writing your homework out on paper. I said that early in the semester, I think, to this class. Okay. Yeah, I think I said it to most of my class in my district. I'm just here. Yeah, my apologies, but start writing it out on paper because it sticks. If you write it on paper, much better than if you just do it on the screen out there on the image. Okay, so x-intercept occurs, y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. It also helps if you say things right. I'll work on that myself. Okay, y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. So it occurs when y equals this, meaning that y equals 0 plus 3 equals 3. The y-intercept occurs at the point 0, 3. These words are all important. Okay, you might remember right now what you did. If you write out why you did it and exactly what it means, you're going to remember it much better. I recommend that you kind of try to use the words I'm using, or equivalent words. You might come up with better ones, but use some words. It doesn't take long to slot that down on a piece of paper. I'm pretty good at reading quick handwriting, okay? So when I look at it, hopefully I can read it. But I can at least see what you're doing and see that you're writing out the reason. big reason we learn mathematics is to learn to reason in a place where it's gonna either be right or wrong. So you know when you get it wrong. Okay, well, there's your y-intercept. There's a 0, 3. X-intercept. Y equals 0. So it occurs when 0 equals 1/4 x plus 3. Well, we subtract 3 from both sides. And we get 1/4 x on this side, -3 on this side, but I'm going to switch the two sides. Okay, now how do we solve this for x? We multiply both sides by 4. Okay, 4/1 divided by 1/4 is 4/4 times x equals -12/1. If we want to write it out completely, 1x equals -12, or x equals -12. Now, these intermediate steps are steps you should understand, but you should think them through. You should see. That's going to give me 4/4, and 4/4 is 1, and that's going to be x. So we go directly from here to write x. And that's going to give me -12/1, but dividing by 1, this gives me the number I'm dividing. We get x equals -12. So now our graph looks like this. Y equals 3 on this line. X equals -12 on this line. There's our graph. We label it. Y equals 1/4 x plus 3. At every point on this line, if it's drawn exactly right, we'll have an x and a y coordinate that makes this equation free. Okay, now I'm going to have an assignment on slope. The first half is really easy. The second half isn't that hard. I wanted to go over the whole thing today. There's another assignment that was due Tuesday. I'm going to move the assignment that's due tonight to tomorrow. Give you a little time. I'll move the other one to later in the week. Okay. We don't want to mess with the schedule too much because I left a lot of time at the end so that we can move things back and we get into the really hard stuff. Okay. This is all stuff that's pretty manageable if you just do what we say here. So you'll just have one assignment due next time instead of 2. Then you'll have another one due later in the week. Try to write things out, try to learn it in a way that will retain it and be able to do it when you come in. Okay.